The screen of my phone glowed mockingly in the darkness of our bedroom. Account balance, $127.46. Just 12 hours ago, it had shown over $200,000. I refreshed again, hoping it was some kind of mistake, but the number didn't change. Our joint savings account, our retirement fund, our investment portfolio, all empty. No, 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 I whispered, my hands shaking as I dialed Marcus's number for the 20th time. Straight to voicemail, just like every other attempt. My name is Alexandra Turner, and at 35, I woke up to find my husband of 7 years had vanished with our life savings, leaving nothing but a cryptic note on his pillow. I've taken everything and left. Don't try to find me. The house felt eerily quiet as I wandered from room to room, looking for any clue to explain what had happened. Everything seemed normal at first glance. His clothes still hung in the closet, his favorite coffee mug sat unwashed in a sink, his car was still in the garage. But as I looked closer, I noticed the subtle signs of his planned departure. His passport was missing from our safe. His laptop wasn't in its usual spot on his desk. The drawer where he kept important documents was cleared out. I sank onto the couch, trying to make sense of it all. Marcus and I had met at a tech startup where we both worked. He as a software developer, me in marketing. We clicked instantly, bonding over our shared ambition and drive. He was brilliant, charming, and seemed completely devoted to building a life together. Just yesterday morning, he kissed me goodbye as usual, complaining about a big project deadline. "Don't wait up," he'd said. "I'll probably be at the office late." I believed him, just like I believed everything else. The sound of my phone ringing jolted me from my thoughts. For a moment, my heart leaped, but it was just my best friend, Rachel. "Alex?" Her voice was concerned. "Are you okay? You weren't at our lunch meeting." The lunch meeting. Right. I was supposed to meet potential clients for my consulting business. Everything normal had slipped my mind in the chaos of discovering Marcus's disappearance. "He's gone," I said, my voice cracking. "Marcus took everything and disappeared." "What?" Rachel's shock was palpable. "What do you mean everything?" I explained about the empty accounts, the missing passport, the note. With each detail, my confusion gave way to anger. How long had he been planning this? How many lies had I believed? "I'm coming over," Rachel said firmly. "Don't do anything until I get there." While waiting for Rachel, I forced myself to think practically. I needed to call the banks, freeze any remaining accounts, report the unauthorized withdrawals. But as I reached for Marcus's desk drawer, where we kept all our financial documents, I found something else, a small key I'd never seen before. I was still staring at it when Rachel arrived, letting herself in with her emergency key. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a tight hug. "That bastard," she muttered. "We'll figure this out, Alex, I promise." I showed her the key. "I found this in his desk. I don't recognize it." Rachel examined it, her brow furrowed. "It looks old. Like for a safety deposit box maybe, or a storage unit." "We don't have either of those," I said, then paused. "At least I don't think we do." That was the problem, wasn't it? I thought I knew everything about our life together, but Marcus's disappearance suggested otherwise. What else had he been hiding? We spent the next few hours making calls. To the police, to the banks, to a lawyer Rachel recommended. The police were sympathetic but not particularly helpful. Without evidence of a crime, technically, Marcus had legal access to our joint accounts. There wasn't much they could do. The banks were equally frustrating, explaining that since Marcus was an account holder, the withdrawals were technically legal. But it was my money too, I argued, my voice rising with frustration. "I earned half of those savings." "I understand, Mrs. Turner," the bank representative said diplomatically, "but without evidence of fraud or your husband's consent, we can't reverse the transactions." By evening, Rachel had convinced me to stay at her place. "You shouldn't be alone right now," she insisted. "Pack a bag, we'll figure out our next steps tomorrow." As I threw some clothes into an overnight bag, something caught my eye. A slight gap in the attic access panel above our bedroom closet. Marcus had always insisted on storing things up there himself, claiming the ladder was unstable. I'd never questioned it. "Rachel," I called. "Can you help me with something?" Together, we positioned the ladder, and I climbed up into the musty attic space. At first, I saw nothing unusual, just boxes of holiday decorations and old files. But then, tucked behind a stack of storage bins, I spotted something that made my heart stop, a dusty laptop. Is that Marcus's old computer? Rachel asked as I carefully brought it down. I thought he recycled it when he got his new one last year, I said, examining the device. He said it was broken beyond repair. The laptop was password protected, of course. I tried all the usual combinations. His birthday, our anniversary, his mother's name. Nothing worked. Try his high school girlfriend's name, Rachel suggested. Men are predictable like that. I shook my head. He never talked about his past relationships. Actually, I paused, realizing something. He never talked much about his past at all. Rachel raised an eyebrow. And you never thought that was weird? He said his childhood was difficult, that he preferred to focus on the future. The words sounded hollow now, like so many of Marcus's explanations. I respected his privacy. Well, Rachel said, pulling out her phone, his privacy just stole your life savings. I'm calling my brother. Rachel's brother David worked in cybersecurity. She put him on speaker as she explained the situation. Bring it over, he said after hearing about the laptop. I might be able to help. David's apartment was a tech paradise. Monitors everywhere, mysterious equipment humming softly in the background. He took the laptop from me with careful hands, examining it closely. This is older than he told you, David said, connecting various cables. Based on the model, it's from at least 10 years ago, well before you met him. I watched as David worked his magic, fingers flying over keyboards, screens filling with code I couldn't understand. After what felt like hours but was probably only 45 minutes, he sat back with a low whistle. Got it, he said. But Alex, you might want to sit down for this. The screen came to life, revealing folders upon folders of documents. As David opened them, I felt the room start to spin. There were multiple identities, driver's licenses, passports, social security numbers, all with Marcus's photo but different names. Bank statements showing transactions involving millions of dollars. Emails discussing business deals that seemed deliberately vague. This goes deep, David said quietly. Your husband. He's been running some kind of operation for years. Multiple shell companies, offshore accounts, the works. And based on these dates, it started long before he met you. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. The Marcus I knew was ambitious but straightforward. A software developer who talked about wanting to start his own company someday. The man revealed in these files was something else entirely. Wait, Rachel said, pointing at one of the documents. Look at that name, Phoenix Dynamics. Isn't that the client I was supposed to meet with today? I finished, my voice barely a whisper. They reached out last month about hiring my consulting firm. David clicked through more files. There's a whole folder about you, Alex. Emails dating back to before you met. He was tracking you. Planning to meet me, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Our whole relationship, it was all part of some scheme. Rachel put her arm around me as I struggled to breathe. 7 years of memories flashed through my mind, each one now tainted with doubt. Our seemingly chance meeting at the startup. His interest in my growing consulting business. The way he'd encouraged me to merge our finances. There's more, David said grimly. These companies he set up, they're all connected to Phoenix Dynamics. It looks like he used your relationship to get close to them. There's some kind of tech investment firm. But there's something off about their numbers. I thought about all the times Marcus had asked about my work, showing particular interest when I mentioned Phoenix Dynamics. Had everything been leading to this moment? Had he finally gotten what he needed and decided to vanish? Can you trace where he might have gone? I asked David. He shook his head. He's good, really good. The withdrawals were bounced through multiple accounts before disappearing into cryptocurrency. But he hesitated, then smiled slightly. He made one mistake. What's that? He didn't wipe this laptop completely, and now we have proof of everything he's been doing, including, David pulled up another document, the real ownership documents for Phoenix Dynamics. Alex, your husband didn't just steal your savings. Based on these files, he's been running a massive investment fraud scheme, and you might be the key to exposing it all. I stared at the screens, at the evidence of Marcus's deception laid bare before me. The man I'd loved, the life we'd shared, it had all been carefully constructed fiction. But as the shock began to fade, something else took its place: determination. "Show me everything," I said, pulling my chair closer to the desk. "I want to know exactly what he's been doing." As David began explaining the intricacies of Marcus's scheme, I felt a plan forming in my mind. Marcus thought he used me, manipulated me, and left me with nothing. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated exactly who he was dealing with. I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar to the Phoenix Dynamics meeting I'd missed today. "Let's reschedule that meeting," I said, a small smile playing at my lips. "I think I have exactly what they need to hear." The Phoenix Dynamics office occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming downtown high-rise. As the elevator climbed, I smoothed my blazer and checked my reflection in the mirrored walls. 2 weeks had passed since discovering Marcus's laptop, and every minute had been spent preparing for this moment. "You clean up nice for someone whose husband just stole their life savings," Rachel whispered beside me. She'd insisted on coming along as my assistant, though we both knew she was really there for moral support. I managed a small smile. Image is everything in this game. That's one thing Marcus taught me that was actually true. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area that screamed old money and power. The woman behind the desk looked up with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Phoenix Dynamics. You must be Mrs. Turner." "Miss Turner," I corrected smoothly. "Thank you for rescheduling. I apologize again for missing our original appointment." "Of course. Mr. Richardson is expecting you." James Richardson, CEO of Phoenix Dynamics, was exactly as his photo suggested: silver-haired, impeccably dressed, and radiating authority. He stood as we entered his corner office, extending his hand. "Miss Turner, welcome. I must say, your proposal has caught our attention." I shook his hand firmly. "I'm glad to hear that. Though I suspect we have more to discuss than just marketing strategy." His smile flickered slightly. "Oh?" I opened my briefcase and removed a single folder. "Yes. I believe you've been working with my husband, Marcus Turner. Or should I say Marcus Thorne? Or maybe Marcus Wells? He seems to have quite a collection of names." The color drained from Richardson's face. He pressed a button on his desk, and I heard the office door lock behind us. Rachel tensed beside me, but I remained calm. "How much do you know?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Everything," I said, sliding the folder across his desk. "Every shell company, every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated investment, including proof that Phoenix Dynamics is at the center of it all." He opened the folder, flipping through the documents with increasingly shaking hands. "Where did you get these?" Let's just say Marcus wasn't as careful as he thought. I leaned forward. "But here's what's interesting. He didn't just steal my savings when he disappeared. Based on these records, he also took nearly $50 million from Phoenix Dynamics accounts. Money that I'm guessing you can't report missing without exposing the entire operation." Richardson slumped in his chair, suddenly looking older. "What do you want?" "First, I want to know the truth. How long has this been going on? Was my entire marriage just part of your scheme?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "We've been tracking your consulting firm for years. Your client list, your reputation in the industry. You were perfect. Marcus was supposed to get close to you, gain access to your network. But he went off script, started skimming more than his share, making side deals. Then 2 weeks ago, he vanished with everything." The confirmation hurt, even though I'd suspected as much. 7 years of my life, reduced to a corporate espionage plot. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You're going to transfer my savings back into my account, all of it. Then you're going to hire my firm, legitimately, at triple our usual rate. And finally, you're going to help me find Marcus." Richardson laughed harshly. "And why would I do any of that?" I pulled out my phone and showed him an email draft. "Because if you don't, this evidence goes to the SEC, the FBI, and every major news outlet in the country. Phoenix Dynamics will collapse, and you'll spend the next decade in federal prison." "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice wavered. "You'd implicate yourself." "I'm willing to risk it. Are you?" The silence stretched between us. Finally, Richardson reached for his phone. "Janet, please prepare a wire transfer." He looked at me. "How much?" $212,436.52, I said promptly. "Plus interest." As Richardson made the arrangements, I could feel Rachel trying not to smile beside me. We'd rehearsed this meeting countless times, but the reality was even more satisfying. Now, I said once the transfer was confirmed, about finding Marcus. Richardson shook his head. He's gone dark. Our usual channels can't trace him. But you have resources I don't. Use them. I want to know the moment he surfaces. Why? What are you planning to do? I stood gathering my things. That's not your concern. Just remember, I have copies of everything. One wrong move, and it all comes crashing down. As we left the building, Rachel finally lit out the last she'd been holding in. That was incredible. Did you see his face when you mentioned Marcus's aliases? But I wasn't celebrating yet. This was just the first step. The money mattered, yes, but what I really wanted was Marcus. Not for revenge, at least not entirely. I wanted answers. Back at David's apartment, we found him surrounded by even more computer screens than before. He'd been monitoring the meeting through a hidden microphone in my briefcase. Well played, he said, grinning. Richardson's already made 3 phone calls to his security team. They're scrambling to track Marcus down. Can you access their communications? I asked. Already on it. But Alex, he hesitated. Are you sure you want to pursue this? You've got your money back. You could walk away. I thought about the key I found in Marcus's desk, still a mystery, about the years of lies and manipulation, about the fact that somewhere out there, the man I'd loved was probably already planning his next con. I need to know why, I said simply, and I need to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. True to our agreement, Phoenix Dynamics hired my consulting firm, and suddenly my legitimate business was busier than ever. But behind the scenes, we were building a trap. David monitored Richardson's communications while Rachel helped me sort through years of Marcus's digital footprint. Patterns began to emerge: cities he frequented, aliases he favored, the type of marks he pursued. Look at this, Rachel said one evening, pointing to her laptop. 3 of his known aliases have recently opened accounts at banks in Singapore. That's him, I said, recognizing the pattern. He always sets up his escape routes in 3s. He'll use 2 as decoys and 1 for the actual money. David looked up from his screens. Want to hear something interesting? Phoenix Dynamics just approved a major investment in a Singapore tech startup. Richardson's flying out next week for the signing. I smiled. Marcus won't be able to resist. A chance to steal from both his old partner and a new mark at the same time. He'll be there. We spent the next few days planning. I called in every favor, used every connection I built over years of consulting. If Marcus was going to be in Singapore, I wanted every eye in the city looking for him. The piece with the key finally fell into place 3 days before I was set to leave. David had been running it through various databases when he found a match, a private storage facility in Singapore. It was rented 10 years ago, he said, by one of Marcus's earliest aliases. The payment's been automated ever since. His backup plan, I realized. A place to store whatever he can afford to lose. I thought about what that might be: evidence of past cons, money, more identities. The night before my flight, Rachel helped me pack while David made final security arrangements. Are you nervous? She asked, watching me check my passport for the 10th time. No, I said, and meant it. For the first time since he left, I feel like I'm in control. Whatever I find in Singapore, at least it'll be the truth. The next morning, as my plane took off, I thought about how much had changed in just a few weeks. Marcus had thought he was leaving me broken and penniless. Instead, he forced me to become stronger, smarter, more determined than ever. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo David had managed to enhance from a Singapore security camera. Marcus, in an expensive suit, entering a high-end hotel. He looked exactly the same, yet somehow like a stranger. See you soon, darling, I whispered, touching the screen. I think it's time we had a real conversation about our marriage.